Right, welcome to the latest participant. So I will introduce myself first. My name is Andrea Facchini. I'm one of the partners at Awair. We specialize in anything to do with talent acquisition and talent development. And Awair distributes the Hogan Assessments around the world, but specifically we are distributors for Italy, France, and the UK. Now, I manage the UK kind of side of the business, but we actually operate in these three countries. And our clients are be spread all over the world. So we work in a way globally to serve clients wherever they are. Now, on this page, and we'll send you the slides at the end of this meeting, you will find also a link to a dedicated webpage for the safety solution. So it's awaregb.co.uk/safety. You'll be able to download lots of stuff and resources and white papers from there too. Aside from being a partner at Awair, I'm also a business psychologist, an executive coach, an assessor, so I cover different roles, and I've been using the Hogan tools since 2009. Now, we're going to talk about safety and safety-conscious behaviors. So I would like to get started by actually asking you, the audience, around, the most common, in your view, safety behavior, if you like, challenges that you have found in maybe your organization or an organization you have worked for in the past, if you like, a consultant. So what we're going to ask you to do is just to have a little think around, what in your view are the top challenges. So the way this works, somebody's joining us now, Sarah. If you take your phone, your mobile phone, you have two options. You can scan the QR code that you see on the bottom left-hand side, or you can go to the address at the top, www.menti.com, and you can use the code 1756265. So if you log on to the Menti website, then I'll give you the next set of instructions. But basically, it's very easy. There are 10 common, I will say, safety behavior challenges that organizations face. And I will ask you to rank them in order of importance. So in your view, what are the most critical components and challenges and the less critical? And by voting, or the way you vote, literally you have to press with your finger on one of the challenges and you can drag it to the top. And then you can reorder the ranking as you wish. So I'm just going to start it, and then you'll be able to, if you like, add your input live on the go. So let me know if you have any challenges, first of all, logging onto the Menti portal. So if you got any IT issues, we're here to help. Right, I can see some people are already populating the scores. So let's see. So keep voting if you're still thinking about it, but obviously, we can't take one challenge in isolation from the other. Everything is pretty much interconnected. So managerial commitment often shapes the organizational culture, vice versa, which also sometimes influences the behavior of those, on the floor, so to speak, or maybe blue collar workers. But we got here organizational culture at the top, followed by, for now, lack of awareness. And that could be, is meant as employee self-awareness. We go again, the commitment from management, not steady under pressure, emotional composure or lack thereof, being easily distracted, selecting the right employees, and complacency is voted last for now, right? So we got culture very strongly voted at the top for now. Okay, somebody just joined us now. Again, if you want to take some time to vote around the top challenges when it comes to safety conscious behaviors at work. We got a list here of interconnected elements, if you like. I think we're done. Okay, so that's interesting because culture has come up on top and we will look at culture as well. So today we're going to focus on, if you like, individual personality, but we're not saying that personality is everything. Of course, the right, if you like, personality, so to speak, can still not perform well in terms of safety in the wrong culture or in a culture that doesn't support that from the top. So definitely that's a critical component that we'll be looking at as well. Okay, thank you very much. So a few words about Hogan. Hogan is an assessment provider, assessment, personality assessments. And basically, we work with all sorts of organizations that have safety solutions, of course, but also solutions on high potential and leadership development. What differentiates Hogan is that they have a research archive that's pretty massive. So for most jobs in the global economy, and in particular for safety, as I mentioned, they have over 30 years of research. And actually, Hogan started as a company by selecting safety conscious drivers for an organization. So when it comes to safety, I would say Hogan are pretty much experts in the field and have lots and lots of data and research studies to support, in a way, the claims and the model that I will be discussing in a minute. So, but the question is, if we spend a lot of money, training people around safety, why do we have still so many accidents, which, kind of outweigh the cost and the investment, of the training? So why is that? So, to the left-hand side, of course, there's a sort of conventional wisdom. So training is important, equipment, protocol, it leads to safer employees. Yes, of course, they are very important points. And the second point, yes, organizations do have a sort of financial and ethical obligation to create safe environment. However, in reality, to the right, training has not had the level of impact that one would expect. So it's not really reduced, the number of workplace injuries. So they're still happening, right? So training is important, but isn't enough. That's the kind of premise for today. And not a lot of emphasis is put on individual personality and how that influences safety conscious behaviors. So we're looking more at the systemic level and not so much at the individual contributor level. But that's a very important factor that's often ignored. So basically, there are many components to safety culture or workplace safety. As you mentioned, a culture of work and engagement or a culture of safety is very critical. In fact, you voted it as number one. But also the worker personality, again, that's the focus of today, and the organizational leadership, of course. So this safety assessment that I'm going to show you, basically, what does it do? It measures six, safety-related competences, right? And how we score our predisposition for those. And you can use it for two applications. One is for hiring and screening job applicants, so a selection. And one is for developing the current workforce, so, a dual function. And it kind of gives you input and data and analytics to better understand the kind of, safety culture of the organization as is, what kind of predispositions are actually in place and what may need to be addressed in terms of training and development. So you can also change the way or the approach to training by providing, assessment-led training interventions, kind of driven by the personality data. But basically, when it comes to accidents in the workplace, if we ask people, can you describe those who don't tend to demonstrate safety conscious behaviors? They tend to be described in this way. They're either inattentive to details, maybe they're not reliable, they don't follow rules, they're unable to handle stress or adapt to changing work environments. Maybe they don't get along with others, they create conflict, or the most common one, they're overly extroverted. So they're outgoing and they like to be the center of the attention. Now, all of these descriptions cannot derive from specific personality characteristics that are linked to the assessments that we use. And these are the six safety related competencies that we'll talk about today, most of them. So basically, I'll give you an example for all of them, apart from one, which is the kind of the distractible one. But each of one kind of shapes up the DNA of our safety conscious predispositions, if you like. And by completing this assessment, we can give an individual scores around these competencies on a scale from 1 to 5. But let's look at the assessment that drives this scores, how the scores are calculated. So in order to do that, we use an assessment called the Hogan Personality Inventory. This is the first assessment that was developed by Hogan Assessment Systems in the UK. And it's sort of traditional, but not traditional, big five personality assessments, although it uses actually 7 dimensions. So it's a big 7. And it's the most research assessment that Hogan has in terms of research archives. It sort of describes many things: how we manage our emotions, how we manage our relationships, how we execute tasks, how easily distracted we are, and so forth. So having all these components really helps with the, if you like, assessment of the safety-related competences that we look at. The assessment takes about 15 to 20 minutes maximum to complete. It's not timed, so it's a pure personality tool, but on average, people take that time. After the assessment is completed, the report that you will see is automatically generated. So let's look at some examples. So first of all, we got a dimension around following procedures. And we use 2 scales, so if you like, 1 scale that goes from defiant to compliant, 2 ends of a spectrum. So if you score low on this scale, people tend to defy authority and they tend to ignore company rules. But high scorers, that's what we want. They tend to follow rules and guidelines. Of course, there are some drastic examples here for, if you like, training purposes as well. But Chernobyl is considered to be, of course, one of the worst disaster in history. Sadly, a lot of people died at a cost of over $200 billion. So there are many factors, of course, that drive these disasters, but one contributing factor was, again, the worker's personality in relation to the cooling system, but basically there was high defiance of the process. So, many processes and rules were not followed during a crisis at the power plant. We got another component here, second one, handling stress. Now, this is really the ability to deal with tense situations. And the ability to do that, the capacity to deal with tense, difficult situations, affects the decisions that we make. So in this, another example here, we got flight 3407. It was a flight from Continental Airlines, crashed in a house, actually, near Buffalo, New York. So when they investigated the crash, they found that not only there was a bit of chit chat that was kind of not really relevant between the pilots, but they also noticed that the head pilot kind of panicked under pressure, and that affected his decision making. So actually pulled the nose of the aircraft up, causing stalling and causing the crash. So how do we deal with tense moment, tense situations? Can we deal with the pressure and, if you like, leading to effective decision making? For the next one, which is sort of somewhat similar, but this is more around keeping your emotions in check, not just managing stress. We're more of a good story, fortunately. So we got a scale of irritable versus poised. Low scorers, they kind of easily lose their temper. And this is also the case maybe for the police force. We have some situations in the UK where the police have used excessive force out of frustration, on people, leading to death, sadly. But high scorers tend to remain very calm, even in stressful situations. And again, that leads to more optimal decision making. So we got a case here of the miracle on the Hudson, the famous case of the flight 1549 that crashed into the Hudson River. You might have seen the movie as well, but obviously Sullenberger was very, very calm. If you hear the recordings as well, and he made very important decisions in a very short time by keeping his cool, and that was considered to be a contributing factor to the success of this landing, so to speak. Then we got sadly an Italian case, tendency to take unnecessary risks. So low scorers on the scale, they do unfortunately take unnecessary risks. They flirt with danger, they play with fire a little bit too much, versus high scores, they don't. They evaluate all the risks and consequences before making risky decisions or any decision at all. And you got the case of the Costa Concordia, of course, where there was basically Schettino did not follow much of the guidelines and the safety procedures. He kind of went too close to to shore and the seabed. He turned actually the warning systems off, it seems. He abandoned the ship, did not follow procedure. As you know, 32 people died, but the cost as well of the retrieval and the salvage of the ship was $2 billion US. So one, again, if you like, individual, sadly causing quite a lot of human and ethical and financial damage. The last one I'm going to talk about is around training and development. Complacency sometimes can be a big risk in health and safety environments. So if you score low on this scale, they tend to sort of overestimate their competence, and therefore they become very difficult to train. I was talking to an organization recently, and they told me that the highest number of incidents actually came from people who had the most experience. That's what it's trying to measure. How complacent do people get? Are they still trainable over time? Because you can invest a lot of money and resources in training, but again, people may not be very receptive of it. They may not get a lot out of it. So high scorers instead, they tend to listen to advice, they take advantage of opportunities to learn, and they have a sort of learning mindset, a continuous development mindset. So you have the case here of the Deepwater Horizon disaster, the explosion in 2020 on the drilling rig, killing 11, injuring 17. So there were many factors here at play. First of all, there was a cultural issue. So you mentioned how important culture is. And apparently people were afraid of reporting unsafe behavior, right? And that was based on a climate survey that was administered a month prior to the incident. But also, BP engineers apparently consistently ignored what the subcontractors were telling them. So some of the risks were reported prior to the accident taking place, but they were also ignored. So if you combine the two factors, a culture of, if you like, reprisal and, perhaps a bit of arrogance, of course, this is what outcome it led to in this specific case. So, having said that, these are just some examples, some stories, of individual behavior or behaviors leading to specific, and disastrous outcomes. But when it comes to the safety report, this is what you can actually use in your organization. It's structured in 3 sections, basically. First of all, we look at the behavior, then you get an overall safety score, and then you also get an optional component around development areas. So if you take a development angle and not a selection of talent acquisition angle. But let's look at the report. Again, this is generated automatically after completion of the Hogan Personality Inventory Assessment. So let's say I complete this assessment, it takes me 15 minutes, and this report is automatically generated and emailed to a recipient of choice in the organization. You have an introduction that sort of sets the premise for the report. You have the sections of the reports highlighted here on page 3. And then you get actually the scores on these dimensions and these competencies that we talked about today. As you can see, in this case, in this sample, it's got a variety of scores, average, high, a couple of very low scores, and that would probably be quite critical in terms of selection or development kind of focus, and another average score. You can also, of course, look at how each scores will impact the job, of course. You can contextualize the results as well within the premise of your organization and the kind of work that the individual has to perform. Then you also get qualitative feedback. So we all have strengths and related concerns, right? No one is perfect. But this report will also give you some narratives around likely strengths that you're likely to observe in the individual and what to watch out for. That could also be a result of a very high score, of course. As I said, it's not always a perfect, that is not a perfect employee, but this will also help you understand maybe what kind of questions you want to ask at the interview, or how to better direct that person if you're a supervisor or a manager. So inform the behavior moving forward. And after so many disasters, I would like to share some success stories. Oh, by the way, there was something here. Yes, you also get an overall safety score for this individual. So if you look on the left-hand side, not only you will get scores on individual competencies, but also an average of all the scores. Now, this is very important. It's like a kind of meta index that can help you really rank individuals if you're selecting them, and compare and contrast the number of candidates if you are doing a talent acquisition kind of campaign. Now, some success stories, so evidence-based research. Basically, the first case study is around transportation. And again, Hogan has many, many, many case studies. Again, if you visit the link, you'll be able to download several case studies from our website and a white paper. But basically, in this case study, there were 185 bus drivers, and the company is a large metropolitan transportation company. And in terms of performance data, we look at accidents, rule violations, workers' compensation claims, and customer complaints. So we have 4 variables here, right? And Hogan split basically the population into groups. Those with above average or high safety tendencies or scores based on the reports and the assessment, and those with below average safety scores. Now, the outcomes are really evident here. If you score high on the safety report or higher, you have 25 fewer compensation claims, 40% fewer rule violations, 20% fewer accidents, and 10% fewer customer complaints. So, there was not a drastic difference on the customer complaints, but there was a quite significant difference on more organizational, variables and criteria, so to speak. But this is all okay, and it has to do with worker personality. Now, the second case study perhaps is a little different because it's looking at another important variable that you have highlighted earlier on in the call, and that is workplace culture. So Hogan has a system called the SAFE system, whereas we have this personality assessment and tool, but we also have other kind of measures, including a safety climate culture kind of survey, right? So in this case study, it was a manufacturing company, plastic tubes, and they had 100 general plant workers. They were concerned about the number of accidents and injuries at the plant. So they used the climate survey, which is an organizational-wide survey that Hogan has developed and you can administer to measure that component as well, to influence and change the current safety culture. How? Well, there was coaching, there was consulting, there was information and data shared to restructure, how safety basically was managed in the organization. And they had lots of, positive impact, of course, including reduction in fines from the regulatory bodies. They started using the safety report for selection and for feedback. And within 2 years, they brought the lost time accident rate to 0. So that was a huge impact. This takes time, of course. When you implement these solutions, they're not silver bullet solutions, of course. So you may expect, them to be part of a wider strategy, of course. So to summarize, you have the safety assessment, right? And the safety assessment looks at individual personality with a safety report. You can use these as a part of the hiring process if you start with a selection. So, we'd always advise, rather than fix the issue later, start with the right foot. So hiring the best, the most safety conscious employees, it's obviously going to make your life a lot easier. So we start with people who show a propensity for safety conscious behaviors. We also would suggest that coaching employees is also very important. How does personality affect workplace safety? We can obviously contextualize to the real world, to their needs, to the specific situations, and specific targets. Everyone will be different, and I may score very differently on that report compared to a colleague of mine. So the focus areas for attention and development becomes very bespoke and customized. You can also coach managers using the survey, using the personality assessment reports. We have lots of tools that managers can use to better support their employees to, again, develop in specific critical areas that maybe have been highlighted by the report, and in addition, maybe to other performance data that it's available. So as you can see, the safety assessment and report can be used as a standalone, of course, can be used in conjunction with coaching and training and development, and in conjunction with the safety survey, safety climate survey. Now, for those of you working in kind of health and safety focused organizations today, you probably have other surveys, so you'd have to use Hogan survey. But the best approach is obviously an integrative approach where all of these factors are interlinked and taken into account. So I'm going to stop here because, we covered a lot of content now, and I would like to start taking some questions, and maybe we'll go back as well to the survey that you completed at the beginning, see, if we can make any links with that. Now, again, looking back at, the initial survey that you completed, that you filled out. So it's interesting now, again, organizational culture and managerial commitment, are voted the top to challenges that you face, right? And how perhaps individual personality is not so much rated. Now, these could also be kind of the premise of the point of view of Hogan, right? Perhaps we put too much emphasis on these two factors and not enough focus on how individuals contribute to building a safety conscious culture, right? So that's the challenge that I put forward to you. Now, does anyone here work in, I suppose, in a health and safety conscious environment? Would they agree with a statement? Would they challenge it? I mean, yeah, I'd like to hear maybe from some of the experts here. Because yeah, it's always good to hear from those who work with health and safety every day, because it's easy for us to make those claims, maybe, but they may not be seen as relevant, right?
Let's break the ice.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Alessandra Venturi, and I'm a HR manager. I have experience of working in a chemical company. I have experience working with safety commitment, and also I was one of the ones that was rating organizational culture and management commitment as the highest one. Because according to my experience, I'm completely in agreement with you about the personal responsibility of people taking the risk, or who are willing to take the risk. But then this is something that is more related to an individual task that can be in a way addressed if the organizational culture is there, and you can better manage the behavior of the individuals. So that's according to my experience. I mean, it's having a preventive as something, a tool that prevents or forecasts a bit the behavior of a person might be really interesting. But then, I mean, you need really to have a mature environment or a mature organizational culture to really make this or see big results, big positive results in an organization.
Yes, thank you, Alessandra. They are deeply interconnected, the two factors, right? And of course, without safety conscious culture and commitment and, drive from the top, this can influence the behaviors, of course, coming up, if you like, from the bottom up. But I want to ask you as well, how were individuals selected in these companies where you worked?
Well,
If
we
you know that.
usually, especially for manufacturing positions or for positions that are in production, we pay attention during the interviews to make to pose questions that are behavioral questions. So we try to investigate the past, how the person was facing the problem, how the person was fixing reacting to the problem. So we tend to ask them to tell us about their experience because and understanding more what do they did in their past, it can be, I mean, something. It can be a forecast on how do they will react in the future. So this is the only way we use. We are not really so sophisticated so far, but indeed we are trying to look to other opportunities to find better ways to so to understand that if we are hiring the right person or the person with the right attitude, not really the right person.
Yes, so at least you did interviews, because very often as well when it comes to because I suppose blue collar, I don't like that word, but just to so we have an understanding. Sometimes you also get high volumes, and it's not very easy to interview everyone. It's a big effort to run an interview for many people. So what the safety assessment can also do is to help you screen out a number of participants based on other data, of course, maybe experience, CV. You can have an additional data point, and that enables you, for instance, in this case, to focus on those who maybe score above average, and that they're more likely to exhibit those behaviors. So saving yourself also some time.
Yeah, because I was thinking more about this tool as a tool to be applicable to big numbers, with company with big numbers of people, for sure.
Yeah, we can't interview them one by one, right? It would be impossible. So you need another tool. Thank you so much, Alessandra. Thank you for your contribution. Okay, so let me just add a couple of things. Again, if you want to contribute, ask questions, or challenge any of the content that we explored today, feel free to jump in time. Don't be shy. What I wanted to add is that, in our experience, the best way to see if this tool can work for us is to try it out. So we can arrange a free trial of the safety assessment and safety reports. Maybe it could be for selection, maybe it could be for development. But if you get in touch with us, yes, we'll explore what kind of ideas you had in mind. If you want to run a pilot, just to see how it could be integrated in your current processes and systems, we're very happy to have these conversations and again offer you a free trial of the assessment and the reports. If you're looking to explore also the other solutions like Safe System, the survey, the development that can be attached to this, we also, of course, here. Now, we talked to you about the last thing about some Hogan case studies, but we also have an Awair case study that we're in the process of developing, and we're gathering data. And it's an interesting one, perhaps, because traditionally this stuff has been used mostly for employee selection, hiring, and acquisition, but this company is using it for development. And I can't swear by the data because it's still being kind of researched, but the organization has seen in a relatively short time a reduction of workplace accidents of, I think, 30%. So as soon as the data is collated and we have the case study, but that's our first Awair specific example that we can offer you. So not only of course, we can rely on the Hogan Research database, but we have also some of our clients using it with good results. If you are interested as well at measuring impact, that's actually even better for us. We wouldn't want to use the tools just because it's a nice tool. So we can also run research projects with Awair, with the Hogan Research division. So if you got a specific research question in mind or something that you really want to work on, let's say a data point that you want to reduce, further, you know, something that's risky for the organization, we can help you measure what the impact of this solution is in your current organization. So research is always, conversations around research are always welcome as well. So I hope it was useful. I'll stay behind for any Q&A, of course. You know, some of you may come up, and we'll send you the slides of this presentation. And of course, we'll send you also a copy of the white paper that we put together in case you haven't downloaded it already. All right, so thank you for coming. And again, I will stay behind for some Q&A.